Hi, I'm Suzie Edmonds and I'm here interviewing Sue Gray, who is a candidate for the Tauranga By Election. I've had the privilege of working with Sue on a few projects, and in particular, she's been very helpful and graceful with us with the Bella Vista issue. Sue, welcome, and thank you for agreeing to this interview today. Firstly, I'd like to say to you that with the political nature of the climate at the moment, is that we're seeing a lot of lack of democracy here, and I think one of those things has been around the Tauranga City Council. So, can you tell us a little bit about your meeting with the commissioners the other day?
Yes, thanks, Suzie. And first of all, thanks very much for inviting me to talk to you. It's really exciting to be invited to talk. And so I actually met the councillors twice on the same day. The first time was in the meeting in the morning, the public meeting about Links Road. And then the second time was in the afternoon, and that was a meeting where all of the by-election candidates were invited by Commissioner Tolley to come and meet with the commissioners. So the first meeting in the morning's got a fair bit of publicity because the commissioners didn't really like what the audience asking them questions.
And yes, and I saw you go live with that after they left. That was very, very a good idea to do because you got some good comments from people.
Yeah, it was actually a great opportunity to get a bit of democracy there, because one of the reasons that people were there was that they hadn't been heard anywhere, and they had some really important comments to share with the council. They were hoping that they could actually talk to the council, or at least the commissioners. The commissioners clearly didn't want to listen, so it was a great opportunity to live stream their comments and get them out so that people could understand what was going on.
So with your meeting with the commissioners, would you like to give us a little bit of insight? We're keen to know.
Yeah, sure. So they invited us after one of the candidates had said something that the commissioners didn't like, and they decided that they would give us all a briefing on what they thought we needed to know about their plans for Tauranga. And actually it was a good meeting. All of the candidates attended except for one. The National Party candidate didn't come. But they gave us a sort of package of information, and it was about the infrastructure projects and the roading and some of the areas where they'd flagged for subdivision and that type of thing, and a bit of just a sort of an overview of what they thought should happen for Tauranga in the foreseeable future.
So for you, that would have been very good information to gather from them, and I think that was a very smart move on their part, and I compliment them on that. Having said that, does it give you the opportunity to now get out there into the community and ask if this is what the people want, or ask their opinion of what the council are proposing, the commissioners' council are proposing going forward?
Yeah, look, it's always useful, and I'm very big on listening to everybody's perspectives, because there's a lot of frustration about the commissioners in the community, and especially a lot of frustration that central government, Nana Mahuta, had re-elected or extended the commissioners' role without an election this year, when every other council in New Zealand is having an election. So the commissioners are on their back foot really with democracy before they start. And good on them for fronting up with the by-election candidates and saying, look, this is what our role is, this is what we're planning to do. And on the face of it, it was quite a glossy presentation that they covered the issues that they wanted to cover. However, once you started digging a little bit behind the scenes, and good on them, because they did let me ask some questions. I asked quite a few questions, and some of the other candidates asked the odd question too.
Oh, thank you for that. That's amazing.
Once we started asking questions, it was clear that all is not as tidy as they'd perhaps like it to be. And some of it isn't their fault. Some of it is a compounding problem over the years, where Tauranga looks to have just sort of had this ad hoc growth, and there hasn't really been much of an overall plan. You know, there's obviously major roading issues all over the place, and cones, you know, it's a city of cones almost here, which is quite frustrating for everybody, and we hear about it all the time. And they do have plans to improve the main infrastructure routes, which is great. But those plans don't seem to have any firm time frame on when they will happen. And so that's obviously a real problem for the community.
Do you think that the commissioners have a very serious approach to the running over of budgets? Because the CEO, the people working in council come up with a budget and we seem to blow them out the blimmin' door, don't we?
Yeah, well, look, I was a bit surprised about the scale of the dollars involved, and they didn't seem to be terribly concerned that it meant that the rates would go up considerably. And especially at the moment when everyone's struggling so much with just paying their bills because their food has gone up and their petrol's gone up and pretty much everything has gone up. For the rates to go, I think they're talking about 20% or more, that's a huge burden. And I would have called that discretionary increases. You know, these ideas of building museums and sort of monuments to the commissioners is not really something that the community perhaps can afford at the moment.
Yes, and that's one of the big contenders with all the people that I ever speak to is that, look, you know, we can't afford this now. Why don't we put this money into things that we absolutely desperately need? And rates rising to build a monstrosity of a building doesn't go down well with pensioners just on a pension, does it?
No, and you know, a lot of people I talk to and the feedback I'm getting is that the real concern is that the energy and the whole vibe in the town is missing, and that's not really a thing that comes with a monument. It's a thing that comes from getting people into town and people having music and dance and fun and festivals and just being a nice place to be. And it's not, from what I can see and from the feedback I've been getting, it's not really directly related to these plans that the councillors, the commissioners have got.
So in your work as a lawyer, you often are working for the underdog. And I'd have to say that the work that I've done with the Bella Vista debacle and a few other things, I've very much felt an underdog because you're not listened to and you're not heard. I've got a very direct question. If you were in Tauranga as an MP, what would you have done if I had come to you and said, look, the council aren't listening to us, and we told you and showed you some very serious issues around what had happened within council, and I'm talking about criminal activity, I'm talking about really bad things, and some of that I've spoken to you about in the past. What would you do for me as my MP to help me and all of our team to get some kind of dialogue going with the council? Or you know that I wrote to Minister of Local Government about putting the commissioners in because we were having such problems with Bella Vista, but we were never heard by the minister back then. And so I just wonder what you would do as our MP.
Look, I think the MP's got a really important role in a whole range of things, and part of that is making laws down in Wellington. But the MP's also got really important roles back in their hometown where they're elected to represent the people in that town. And it doesn't make any sense to me that central government Nana Mahuta feels that she can get involved in local politics, and yet the local MP can't get involved in local politics. Clearly, the local MP's got a role as a mediator or facilitator, raising awareness and doing everything else that needs to be done. I mean, I would have thought that getting everybody around the table and talking right from the start would solve so many problems.
Is that a role that you would say, look, let's have a meeting and pull a meeting together? Is that something you would do as an MP? Because I think that that's what our community is lacking, is that the door gets slammed. And I've just had an official information come back, and I've seen that some of the inquiries were being made quietly have been looked into by the legal team well before we even were considering any legal action.
Yeah, look, it seems to be a nationwide problem at the moment that the government has forgotten that they're representing the people, and that's at national level and at local levels, and they seem to be much more interested in protecting themselves and their own future careers and the status quo of whatever they want to do rather than representing the people. So for me, everything should be actually turned upside down, inside out, because the whole thing about democracy is that elected representatives' only duty is to represent the people who've elected them. And that's got to be the starting point. And so before you can really even know what the right thing to do is, the starting point is go and talk to people, listen to people. And that's what I tried to do at the Links Ave meeting at the council the other day. Okay, the commissioners had decided that they weren't prepared to listen. They'd gone off for a cup of tea of their own. Well, while we had all those people there, let's have a meeting and let's get some of these issues aired and out on the table. It was really interesting after that, when the commissioners came back to that Links Road meeting and they said, oh, well, you know, we're going to have these community stakeholder groups that we're going to be setting up, but they didn't put any time limits on that. And so one of the questions I asked them in the afternoon meeting was, great that you came back and said that you wanted community engagement. When are you going to do it? Can we start this week? What's stopping us starting this week? Well, of course, they had a whole range of reasons why they couldn't possibly do it now, and they wanted to postpone the start of that process for several months, basically until the trial on Links Ave is completed. And I said, well, what's the point of that?
Yes.
If you're going to do the engagement, do it now. The people are really angry and frustrated now. They've got a lot of feedback already. It may be that it's a waste of time to go through the rest of this Links Ave trial. There may be modifications that can remove a lot of the concerns. Why don't you talk to the people this week?
Yes, and that's the whole problem. You know, I've been involved in many councils for many years in Tauranga, and that's what we did. You know, we had that open forum, and we no longer have an open forum. We have very closed. We get 5 minutes, and then you that's it, and we've got a very busy agenda, blah blah. So I think I hear a commitment from you, Sue, that you're going to be listening to the people.
Absolutely.
And I want another little commitment from you, is that you're going to work with the people and follow that through. There's no use listening to us and then slamming the door after we leave, is there?
Yeah. No, and look, I totally agree. And I do understand that people are frustrated with politicians. And that's why what you need to do is not listen just to what people say they're going to do. You've got to look at what they have done in the past that got them to the place of wanting to be a politician. And if they haven't done it yet, then they're probably not going to change their behaviour and start to listen to the people afterwards. So what I'm saying is, look at what I've been doing for the last 25 years or so, where I've helped communities all over the country. I've helped people with disabilities. I've helped small businesses. I've helped people who have got frustrations with their local councils, with regional councils, with central government. I've helped Maori groups where their local food has been proposed to taken away because of development, all sorts of different groups. And the way I love to operate, I love learning and I love hearing people's stories and voices. And then once you get all the different perspectives around the table, you can then sit people down together and actually find a solution that works for everybody. This whole idea that our elected representatives or our bureaucrats know best is so wrong.
Yes, exactly. Which takes me on to the next subject, which was the Sun Live media put on a little debate last night, and you weren't invited to that. But what I did see when I was watching it is I saw the typical promise from the normal parties that are there. I saw a very enthusiastic ACT and newbie on the block who did, to me, lacked a lot of experience and lacked some knowledge, and I would really think it would be beneficial for him to perhaps be doing what you're doing and going and talking to the people. Whether he is or not, I don't know. We'll give him that opportunity. But I listened to Andrew Hollis, and he actually gave a lot of feedback like you do, which is the listening to the people, solutions based, etc. Going back to you not being invited to Sun Live, what's your take on that? Because it seems like you people that are wanting to be a voice for us and are really wanting to listen and not follow some sort of instruction by your dictator, that you're left out and you don't get invited to these things and you're not seeing the people. And I'm concerned about that myself.
Yeah, look, I'm really concerned because when I got involved in politics, I assumed it was a level playing field. And I was so wrong. I had no idea how many hurdles there are to get a different voice in. So we're up against the sort of franchise parties who have dominated the politics. But not only do they dominate Wellington, they dominate the funding, they dominate the access, they dominate everything. And it makes it really, really hard for anyone new to come along and challenge what they're doing. And so, you know, the day in Wellington when all 120 of our elected MPs refused to come out and speak to the people, and we're talking tens of thousands of New Zealanders who had travelled to Wellington, not all at the same time, but over a period of 3 weeks. We're talking a large number of people, and a large number more people who didn't actually travel, but who supported those people. A lot of them were out on the streets waving and supporting them, or sending goods down and cheering them on. When our elected representative decided that they were not the people that they wanted to represent, and they were only going they were going to close them down and not speak to them, that was so anti-democratic and so wrong. So how do we get some new voices into the system to replace the 120 who, in my view, have proved that they're not fit for purpose of representing other people? Well, we have an election and get new faces before the people so the people can choose some representatives who will represent them. But what unfortunately seems to be happening here in Tauranga is it's a bit of a closed shop. It's like, or it feels like, the Old Boys Network is choosing who gets the access and who doesn't.
You could call it an Old Girls Network and not be politically incorrect these days.
Although after Simon O'Connor's skit the other day at Parliament, I think we can
I just mention Simon, because what has really upset me with the whole protest situation was that the parties that were in Parliament, those that hold seats, I think it's 120 MPs, chose to join into a agreement, cross-party agreement, not to talk to us out there. You know, I was there for a few days, and I did a lot of interviewing people, and there was a heck of a lot of people that were from my walks of life. There was doctors, there was lawyers, there was all sorts of people. It was not anything of like the media said it was.
Nothing like it.
And that's why I really went down. I really thought, as much as I wanted to support it, I went down because I wanted to see what it really was. I wanted to not listen to what the media like, just find out. I like to go and do the investigative stuff myself. But Simon O'Connor, he's come out lately with some pretty good stuff. I'm pretty fond of him as an MP. He's doing a good job. But he didn't speak up back then.
Yeah, where was he?
But I'm positive he's said something now. But what would you do if you were in Parliament and they came to you with the black pen to sign that agreement? What would you do?
Absolutely no way. And not only would I not sign it, but I would have gone public and said, look, this is what they're asking us to do. And I would have said who it was that was asking me to sign something so undemocratic. I'm absolutely astonished still that any MP thought it was okay to sign what's basically a conspiracy against the people of New Zealand, a document saying that we won't do our job as an elected representative. Instead, we're all going to stick together and not talk to the people who elected us. But it's so wrong. And I know it happens a lot with the party franchises where if you're elected for Labor, you basically have to do what you're told by the Labor hierarchy, the so-called whip, the same for National and the same for ACT. And, you know, I've had the problem in Nelson. An old school friend of mine got elected for ACT, but no one's allowed to talk to him. He's not allowed to ask questions on any of the subjects that I want questions on because David Seymour says he can't. You know, and this is how it all works.
And this is a dictatorship, which I speak of often, and I lose a few friends on these conversations, as you can imagine. Look, Sue, I really enjoyed our chat, and we will chat again in the coming weeks. It's going to be, you know, a busy time. Having said that, you have spared me this time today. I'm most grateful, and you've got to rush off now. So thank you very much, and we'll look forward to coming back again.
Fabulous. Thanks, Suzie. I really appreciate talking to you. It's great. And every voice, you're doing a great job out there too. You're really representing so many people in the community and listening and doing all the things that our paid elected representatives should be doing but aren't doing. So thank you too.
Thanks. See you.